This is a quick video talking about a curious controversy that I've noticed in London Underground nerd circles, in which I travel incognito. And that's the question of the word tube. Among some people, this is a matter of some controversy. Let me explain. So the London Underground comes in two forms. There's the Subsurface lines, that's the Metropolitan, District, Circle and Hammersmith and City lines. And at one time it would also have included the East London line. Then there's the deep level lines, which is everything else. They are two very different sorts of line. The subsurface lines run trains that are about the same size as conventional main line trains. They share track and even rolling stock with each other. They were constructed using the cut and cover method, where a trench is dug, track is laid, and the trench is covered over. The deep level lines are constructed in actual tunnels dug far below the ground. The tunnels are quite small in diameter, and therefore the rolling stock is of smaller size than the subsurface lines. They don't share tracks with each other, although the Piccadilly line shares some track with subsurface lines, and the Bakerloo shares with the overground at its northern end. The key point is the tunnels. The deep-level tunnels are round and, as I say, narrow. This resulted in the deep-level lines acquiring the nickname the Tube. In fact, the companies that owned these lines often embraced the term. I think that whereas mainline railway companies like to big themselves up, the tube lines were trying to sell themselves as something friendly and universal. So they weren't going to stand on ceremony. The argument goes that only a deep-level line should be referred to as a tube because those are the only lines that are tubular. I mean that in the literal sense, not the surfing sense. Because the subsurface lines are not tube-shaped, you shouldn't call them the tube. The thing is, everybody does. In the early 20th century, several lines were acquired by Underground Electric Railways of London, the empire founded by Charles Yerkes, the guy who shows up on this channel so often that he's practically my co-presenter at this point. These lines were mostly deep level, but the District and half of the Circle line were also in there. UERL consciously marketed all their lines as a single entity, the Underground. In 1933, all the Underground Railways of London, whether UERL or independent, were taken over by London Transport and all came under the umbrella title of London Underground. To most people, the Underground is a singular entity, and the Tube is synonymous with it. And, to be honest, that's fine. I really don't think it matters. If you say, "get the tube at Wimbledon," no one is going to be staggering around in a state of confusion saying, "but there's only a subsurface line here. What?" If you say, "there's a tube strike," people understand that you mean the entire underground network. In general, I find this kind of pedantry a bit tiresome, and to be honest, it kind of feels like point scoring. Like, "Aha, comrade, but you refer to it as a tube when it is clearly a subsurface line. You cannot be a true enthusiast, as I am. Confess." It's just such an unattractive quality. I don't think anyone's ever thought, "Oh man, this conversation is quite interesting, but I really wish there was someone here to derail it with a barely relevant point that has no bearing on the discussion as a whole." Yeah, that never happens. But if someone does insist on playing that game, there are a couple of counterpoints. One is, if it's a tube line because it runs through a tube tunnel, what about the bits that aren't in a tunnel? After all, less than half the underground network is actually underground. Is the central line still a tube line at, say, Barkingside? Or, the ultimate counterblast against pedantry, technically none of the underground is a tube line, because that's only a nickname. Or just ignore them. Well, I hope you enjoyed this technical tale from the tube. If you did, please do click the like button and subscribe for more. Thanks as always to my donors on Ko-fi and Patreon. You are the small rolling stock to my narrow tunnel. And I'll see you all again very soon for another tale from what I will defiantly call the tube.